That means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023. Before we begin our look back, we also want to let you know that we have a deal with Manscaped. Use the code ODTC, and you get 20% off of your total purchase plus free shipping. Great Father's Day gift right now. Go to www.manscaped.com and check it out. And again, please use the code ODTC. It helps us and it helps our channel, and we do appreciate it. All right, intern Noe.
Here we go. Buck, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
So we've been talking the Dallas Cowboys top 5 rivals here on a look back season 2 of OutDrank The Coverage. He's intern Noe the Pro. I'm Terry Bennett. We do appreciate you joining us. And this one is an interesting one, Noe, because, you know, I was telling you before we started, this is one of those rivalries that when you look across the NFL, Dallas and Green Bay have been a huge impact to what the NFL is and all that. But I don't really have that feeling of rivalry against the Packers, even though I should. But anyway, that's what we're doing today, talking a look back. The top 5 Dallas Cowboy rivals. We're at number 4, the Green Bay Packers. Before we get into that, intern Noe the Pro, how are you doing? What are you drinking?
I'm doing well. I'm kind of worried about next month because, like, my mom, her birthday is close to Mother's Day.
Yes.
So it's like 2 gifts.
Yeah.
All back to back. So, you know, I'm broke this month.
Yes.
And then in June,
you got to take care of me on Father's Day and my birthday.
Your birthday and Father's Day. One year, I think it was last year, it was the same day.
Yeah, it was.
So I'm like,
happens every about 7 years.
So like May and June, I'm already tapped out.
Because I'm your daddy. Is that why you're getting me a Father's Day gift? Because I'm your daddy?
I was doing so well to start the day until that comment.
Hey, I'm just going to put it this way, folks. Our show, it's called OutDrank The Coverage. And at 9:48 a.m. on a Friday, we might have started out drinking the coverage. But hey, what would this show be without that? And what are you drinking?
It would be false advertisement if we didn't outdrink.
I didn't bring mine in. I'm drinking Goodnight Loving vodka. I've been drinking it forever. Got it mixed in with my Gator Tail. So y'all know what I drink. What are you drinking?
Supposed to wait for me to ask you.
I know.
Today, I am drinking Firestone Walker, not Parabola. It's the 2021 Kentucky Mule Vintage. It's one of their craft beer specials. It is a bourbon barrel-aged blended ale with ginger and lime peel. I've never had this before.
What's it taste like?
I'm about to find out. Usually, so with these, you kind of want to chill them for 45 to 55 degrees. And then when you actually crack it open and pour it in, you want to wait for it to get to about room temperature. I'm going to go ahead and try it now. I mean, it tastes like a Kentucky Mule, basically a Moscow Mule, but instead of vodka.
So Moscow Mule is one of those things that I didn't hear about forever. Like even as much as I drink vodka, I never heard of it until recently. And I say recently, within the last couple of years, My fiance and I were watching something, and the guy's favorite drink was a Moscow Mule, and he had the cup and everything. Like there's a whole. That's one of those drinks. There's a whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not just the drink. It's not technically a real Moscow Mule if it's not in a copper. I think it is cup. Anyway, so I had never heard of it. Then see it in one show, and then now I see it everywhere. I think it was Poker Face is the first place. That's a great show, by the way. I think that was the first place I saw it. One of the bad guys, that was his favorite drink, was a Moscow Mule. He almost always, kind of like the Trailer Park Boys. The one guy always had the Coke and
rum and Coke.
Is it rum and Coke? I thought it was always Jack and Coke. Rum and Coke? Rum and Coke in his hand at all times. That's kind of how this bad guy was on this show. And so I'd never heard of a Moscow Mule. And now it's all over the place.
Yeah, Moscow Mule. I think I've heard about 10 years ago. Just seeing people with the copper mug. It's very. If you've ever been to a bar and it's always
distinctive.
There's very distinctive. You always see at least one person order it. But branching off of that, they have like the one with gin, the English Mule. I don't know if that's what it's called, but our London Mule, because England is very big in the gin, and then Americans, of course, we like our bourbon, so we have a bourbon mule, or Kentucky, in this case, Kentucky Mule. But yeah, it's pretty good. It just tastes like it's some ginger and lime that was
ginger. That was the one I was trying to think of. That's part of it.
Peeled into the and into the container. It's pretty good. I'm gonna let it keep raising in temperature, because usually when it's warmer, not like 90 degrees, but like room temperature, to where you can taste all the flavors.
Have you done that? Have you done this drink before, or is this your first time?
It's my first time having this. Now, I like Firestone Walker because of their.
Wait. So that beer bottle came in that box?
Yes, the beer.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I got you.
This beer bottle came in this box.
Okay, how cool.
And so once a year I go to Total Wine, and I'm just looking for anything craft related, just so I can have it, just a change of pace from bourbon.
I got you.
So I already know that you're drinking your Gator Tail.
Good Night Lovin' Gator Tail.
Yeah, Good Night Lovin' with Gatorade.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's funny how this A Look Back top 5 is we had some issues and stuff, and so it's kind of got stretched out more than intended as far as when we're recording these. Like technically we should be like really on the second and third, but we're behind. But
why are we behind, Terry?
Because I screwed up when we were doing the honorable mention and the sound played. Shut up. Well, we also had other issues, though. We did have other issues. And I'm actually glad we redid that. Even without the sound issues, the second show, and honestly, the second shows are probably usually always better because you've already said the things. And so you kind of, you're able to refine them. But
right.
I have enjoyed kind of going back again and looking at this. And so if you don't know what we do here on A Look Back, in the off season right now, it's been, of course, very Cowboy centric because we are a Cowboy podcast / YouTube show, but we also do other NFL stuff. But last year we did basically the 5 Super Bowls for the Cowboys plus a couple other things. This year it's a look back at the top 5 rivals plus honorable mention. We did the Giants. We then did the 70s honorable mention as a complete show. That's why we won't have an honorable mention on this one. And we've also decided that we're going to do a 90s honorable mention as a separate show, because basically, I mean, when you're the 70s Cowboys or the 90s Cowboys and you have a dynasty and you have multiple Super Bowls and many great years, there's a lot of teams that become your rival in these little 3-4 year windows. In fact, you can make the case that's Green Bay, which is the 4th rival on our list. You can make a case that Green Bay is kind of the same way. And in fact, even the number 2 rival. Wait, which one's number 2? Yeah, even the number 2 rival, or number 3 rival, excuse me.
The number 2 has rival. Been changing their names a lot.
Yeah, it's the number 3 rival. The number 3 and the number 4 rival are kind of the same way. In the same conference. Yeah, there are some in-conference, in-season games that have mattered, but for the most part, all of the games that are important for Green Bay and Dallas, and then the number 3, which will be San Francisco and Dallas, is the playoff games. In fact, we're kind of living it right now through both of them, unfortunately for Dallas. But in turn, knowing when we talk Green Bay Packers, what's the first thing you think of?
Oh, that's a good question. So funny thing, first thing I think of is a Brett Favre play.
Good or bad?
It's good because the Cowboys won, bad because it was a good play for the Packers. It was a very typical Brett Favre play.
Mhm.
You know, one of those plays where it's just like, you know, he's derping around, but he somehow makes a great play. People love Favre because he plays backyard football in the NFL, and he played at a high level. This play in particular, it was like I think I finally found the video and sent it to you. I think it was a regular season game. He was running, trying to get in the end zone. And the thing that always sticks in my head is he does a pump fake at the 4-yard line,
yeah.
20 yards downfield for whatever reason. But it works.
Always
It
works.
still fakes the Cowboy defenders out, and he
Always
scores a
works.
touchdown. Yeah.
Because you lose sight of where the line of scrimmage is if you're a defender.
Yeah.
One of the most famous Vince Young runs against Oklahoma State, and that amazing comeback's the exact same thing on an 80-yard touchdown.
Oh, no, 5.
He rolls out and he's 7-8 yards down the field. He pump fakes and the linebacker bites it because you get so ingrained on defense of when the arm goes up, you get up. That's always been the rule. You know, if wherever you're at, if the arm goes up, you get up.
So as a football player, especially on the defensive side, you're taught to react, not think. And once you think, you're already lost. So yeah, you automatically think arm goes up,
you go up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that that's the memory you have, because when you go back to the beginning of this rivalry, and that being, of course,
I know what you're gonna say.
What?
Tom Landry.
Yeah, what about him?
His reaction to the 66 title game.
Yep, the Don Meredith interception into the end zone.
That is my top 3 memories if I think about the Packers. Yeah.
And that play will be on the list. And by the way, if you don't know how we do a look back, what we basically do is we kind of do what we're doing now, just kind of overview talking the teams. Then we will give our top Cowboy wins and our top Green Bay wins. That's right. Even though we're a Cowboy podcast, we recognize that to have a rivalry, the other team has to have success too.
Yeah.
There is no rivalry without losses. That's just how it works. And so we have the top 5 wins for each team. And then we have the top plays, what we consider the top plays of the rivalry. And you can usually pick them out. Like San Francisco was really easy. I added a couple because that series has gone on long enough. And there's been a couple of in-season moments that stand out historically, even if it didn't really impact the season or not. So we have like 9 for them. But for Green Bay, we have I think 5 or 6. But when I think of Green Bay, I think of Lynn Dickey.
Okay.
Well, and it's just
so he was the Packers quarterback for most of the 80s.
For late 70s, early 80s. He is that. I mean, when you think about him, it's Richard Todd, it's him, it's Danny White. I know I'm crossing generations. It's John Elway. It's Burt Jones. It's these guys that were really, really good in an era where you were a good quarterback if you threw for 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. That was a good day.
That was a great day back then.
Now,
yeah,
you would get noted for the yards and the touchdowns, but then it'd be like, oh, you got to keep those interceptions down. And I'm not one that waxes poetic on the old game. Like, we need to go back to taking each other's heads off. I don't want that. But I do want quarterbacks to be able to gunsling a little more. I miss that. I miss the idea that, hey, yeah, Brett Favre, you're going to throw some interceptions at times. Now, go back to his Minnesota days, and he throws what I think is one of the most classic, oh, my God, interceptions. But you take the good, you take the bad. You take them both, they have the facts of life.
Facts of life.
There you go.
So,
we don't do that anymore, though.
The Minnesota game you were referencing was the 2009 NFC title game.
Yep.
He was basically, for the most part, perfect that season, and he just turned 40 that season too.
Game is over if he doesn't throw an interception.
Yeah, and I mean the New Orleans Saints do not win their only Super Bowl if he doesn't throw his interception. So yeah, it was very crucial. It was just one of those things where whenever he feels like it, he reverts back to that backyard football, and for better or worse, I mean he's always good for those 1 or 2 games that he just plays poorly.
Yeah.
Tony Romo was a big fan of Favre, and you and I would always say, you and I both love Tony Romo, but we always knew he was bad. He was good to have a bad game 2 to 3 times a year.
And to be fair, we should
all
at least
quarterbacks. And unfortunately for him, he's a Cowboy quarterback.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for him, 2011 and 2012, end of the season, division title was on the line, and he didn't show up.
Well,
that was just one of his. I mean, like Washington.
the whole team didn't show up.
The whole team didn't show up.
And again, I've always contended that 2013, that Denver game, that was the point where people realized, wait a minute, you know what? Might not be Romo's fault that this team isn't.
We might have to do a show just on that because, well, one, you and I had a fantasy football game that was determined by that game because I had Tony Romo and I destroyed you in that week and I was in first place for a little bit. But yeah, that was the thing. He threw for over 500 yards, about 5 touchdowns, and the only thing people remember was the interception at the end.
Exactly.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Did Tony Romo allow 51 points in this game?
Yep. And the other thing about that game, I slept through it. I've told you that before. I missed that
51 to 48 game.
I can remember
against the Broncos and one of the greatest seasons by a quarterback and Peyton Manning.
You sometimes it's like the Blitz in the 80s. You live and die by the Blitz. You live and die by day drinking. Sometimes it just gets you. I can remember a certain game this year, week 1 of the season, where Noe didn't even make halftime of the Cowboy game. It happens. It happens, man. You take the responsibility. It's like the Jedi Force. It's a great responsibility. All right. So you talked about that 66 game. So let's go ahead and do what we do. And that's
okay. Question for you.
Yes.
Why is Green Bay a top 5 all-time Cowboy rival?
Because when they meet in the playoffs, it usually means something. Now, in saying that, it doesn't always. In fact, as great as the Packers wins over the Cowboys have been in the playoffs the last few years, none of them have led to a Super Bowl for Green Bay. Sure. So in fairness, the last 3 playoff matchups really haven't decided a Super Bowl, but I contend, and of course we'll talk about it, I'll contend that in 2014, I really like Dallas playing Seattle in that NFC title game. Because Dallas had already done it to Seattle in Seattle, and that wasn't a fluke. That wasn't Seattle just needs to make a couple adjustments. I think even Richard Sherman talked about it not too long ago. Like they were like, yeah, we wanted Green Bay to win. We felt we had Green Bay's number with Dallas. They were more physical than us. Yeah. And so it decided that Super Bowl just because Green Bay beat them. But when you look at the 60s, I mean, the NFL is not, part of why the NFL is Green Bay and Dallas. I mean, that's one of your first Super Bowl era rivalries where, you had, and this was one of those rivalries where everybody respected each other. Landry and Lombardi loved each other. They'd been on the same coaching staff for the Giants forever. I mean, these were true close friends. The teams, I mean, whenever you see these teams or these people talk about each other back then, it was 100% respect. There was no, we hated them. No, they respected each other, and it was a great matchup. And it's one of those that it kind of goes like to the Steelers in the 70s for the Cowboys. Even though Dallas lost the 2 big games, these 2 teams were so even. It was so compelling. It was one of those things. I think you think Giants-Colts overtime game, what was that, 56? 58. Yeah. You think of that as a seminal moment in the NFL? New York Jets winning Super Bowl III, the Super Bowl one in of itself, of course. Yeah. But I think Dallas, Green Bay, I think that's a seminal moment early in the NFL. I think that the 2 contrasting styles, where they're from. This is Dallas before Dallas became known as the cocaine and boob job, the oil field, the big money. This was still hardworking, blue collar Dallas, and so was Green Bay. So I think there was a lot of same connections, even though Dallas was already bigger than Green Bay. And then again, I don't think we can undersell how big of it was that it was Landry versus Lombardi. These are, in my opinion, 2 of the top 5 coaches of all time who had worked together, who knew each other, who knew each other's styles, who knew how to coach against each other, and just everything about that. And we hadn't even got into the 90s and what that meant for that Cowboys, and we will here in a minute. But we're watching the 1966 one, and everybody remembers the Ice Bowl. But to me, this loss, Cotton Bowl, that was a worse loss in my opinion.
You bring up a good point with the Lombardi and Landry relationship. The Super Bowl trophy is called the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah.
Lombardi won 5 championships in the 60s with the Packers, 3 NFL championships and 2 Super Bowls. This was one of the greatest and best constructed teams of all time. And they basically, kind of like what the Cowboys did in the early to mid 70s, they kind of just drafted well. They got the players, they were young enough, and some of them were good veterans. By the time 66 comes around, the Cowboys finally don't have a losing record the prior year in 65.
Yeah, they're 7-7.
66 is the first year that they're going to have an actual Super Bowl. They call it a Super Bowl. It sounds kind of corny. We love it now.
Actually, I mean, a lot of people back then just called it the title game, the big game, the championship. The Super Bowl didn't really take effect yet. Some were already calling that. Yeah. And if you don't know, famous, I can't remember the guy's name, but he basically named it. His kid had a Super Bowl. He realized, hey, colleges end their season in bowl.
Yeah.
So Super Bowl. Yeah. Perfect. But yeah, this was still just the championship game at this time. People still thought of it more of like a oddity. Like, even if Green Bay would have lost the first Super Bowl, at that moment, I don't think people would have put much stock in it.
I almost want to say that again, you and I are not even close to that age, maybe your dad or whoever, but they might have viewed it as more of an exhibition game.
That's my point. That's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
So in Texas, in state championship basketball in 1A, for a few. So if you don't know Texas high school football, and if you're coming to this show from an NFL angle, I apologize, but just give me a couple minutes. So in Texas high school football, we're split divisions.
Yeah.
Well, in 1A basketball, they've been split divisions forever because the disparity between the top 1A and 1A, by the way, if you're not from Texas, it's the smallest class. So forever, they've been split. And so for a few years, after those two teams won their state championships in basketball, the next day they would play in a pseudo state championship. It really wasn't called that. You didn't win anything.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't win a thing. And everybody that played it was like, yeah, we really didn't care. We won our state championship. That game was just, I think they called it the Apple Cup, oddly enough, or something like that.
Oh, like what Washington State and Washington.
But, and it was just for a few years, and it just didn't work because people were like, we've won our championship. Why do we want to get? And so I think you're right. I think that's kind of how people viewed this for the first few seasons. I think the Jets winning Super Bowl III is what put this as this might be a real game. And then Kansas City beating Minnesota the next year solidified it. That's when you realize, oh crap, the AFL is maybe better, because let's not forget, the AFL won 3 straight. Now, of course, Baltimore flipped over. You can make that case, but still, they were AFL AFC when they won. And so, for all the talk about the NFC back then and AFL was a fluke league and all that, the first 5 Super Bowls, the AFC/AFL won 3 of them.
Yeah.
And Green Bay is the only NFC team that won 2 of them until Dallas beat the Dolphins.
Yeah, in Super Bowl VI. So 1966, this is the first season that they're going to actually have a Super Bowl. So they're just playing. So the video you're watching, they're just playing title game. And as you notice,
how do you drop that, Bob Hayes? You'll never be a Hall of Famer.
As you can notice that both end zones, one's a Cowboys and one's a Packers.
We loved it. And we just realized that this is something you and I didn't even know, like one of those few things. I think it was in the last couple of years. I saw it and I was like, dude.
Well, last year when we did our first season of the Look Back series, we're looking at all 5 Cowboys Super Bowls.
Right. That's what it was.
The 71 title game, because they did the so this year the NFC East gets to host. This year
back then it wasn't about records. It was just random, like it rotated.
Yeah. So this is the first year of Texas Stadium. Cowboys hosted the 49ers. The second straight NFC title game between the two teams in the first year the first 2 years of the NFC. But yeah, you and I both noticed that, well, really that one end zone was Cowboys and one end zone was 49ers.
I think that was San Francisco, though. I don't think Dallas ever, because that was part of the reason.
I think it wasn't the 71 title game.
Well, I thought part of the reason why they stopped doing that was with AstroTurf back then. Like nowadays, you can change that stuff out in a heartbeat. Back then, you couldn't. Like you set that stuff and it was down for however many years. But anyway, point is.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe it was a 70 title game.
I think it was a 72 in grass, because that was the last year San Francisco was on grass too.
Well, 70 was last year at Keyser Stadium.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was on grass.
And it was on grass. So it might have been then when it was one side was San Francisco, one side was Dallas.
So on this 66 game, another thing, again, Green Bay wins this classic game. The game ends with Dallas, not ends, but the game basically ends with Dallas throwing into the end zone on a 4th down and goal, and it was intercepted. This is also one of the this game is one of the reasons Don Meredith quit. Don Meredith, I love Don Meredith.
Me too.
Everything about Don Meredith was awesome. Don Meredith being from East Texas, Don Meredith being a Cowboy, Don Meredith being an iconic broadcaster on Monday Night Football. But imagine today if Dak Prescott came out and announced that he was retiring, and he was retiring because the pressure was just too much. How would the sports world, any quarterback, but especially the Cowboys, be fair, Dallas wasn't Dallas yet at this point, but still, any quarterback that's of a good team that hasn't won a title, that's been really close, how would the sports world act? Because that's literally why he never shied around it. He's like, dude, I was nervous all the time. I was eating cigarettes. And I don't mean he was chain smoking.
Yeah.
He was drinking, as he said earlier in the day and all that. That's accepted back then, which it should be.
Yeah.
And it's weird in that world, which is very much tough man. Yeah. I won't get my butt checked because guys don't get their butt checked. Hey, you're going to die.
Lombardi.
Yeah, that's why I died. Look it up. Yet, Meredith was never treated like that. There's no way if a quarterback, especially a Dallas Cowboy quarterback, retired because they can't handle it. Oh, my God, the crap that they would receive now.
Oh, yeah. And especially with social media, they would be eviscerated. They would just have to live off the grid.
Yep.
Like
basically for a few years. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Basically Bartman for the Chicago Cubs.
Hey, I'm glad they finally forgave him because that never was what they said.
The Chicago Cubs won the 2016 World Series, so they were like, yeah, okay, I guess it's okay.
That does help. But anyway, so this is the first win of great wins for the Packers as they win this game 34-27.
And, this was a big one because this was kind of like old experience versus youth. This is where the Cowboys were the young team, eager to break through. People were starting to become Cowboy fans around 65, 66. And the Packers, they just kept winning championships or being in the championship game. They won in 61 and 2.
4 and 5, 6 and 7.
Well, yeah, 61, 62, and then 65, 66, 67. Eagles won 60, Bears in 63, Browns in 64. But yeah, they were always in that mix.
Yeah.
And they ran a simple offense, which the Cowboys kind of would model 20 years later, where they would just run a simple offense.
Well, and to be fair,
with elite players.
This offense, what Green Bay did is what created the flex defense for Dallas.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen the video. I should have pulled it. You create a seal here. You create a seal here.
Yeah.
And you go right up the tunnel. And so what Landry wanted to do with the 4-3 was stop the tunnel, and the way he did, it's very intricate. I'm not going to try to explain the 4-3 flex, but the basic idea is two of your defensive linemen played on the hip of their linemen, and that kept them from being trapped. Because, we all talk about the
like the 3 gap.
Yeah, 3 gap, and you didn't want that guy. So what he was able to do is he stood up, guard fires out, and the guy that's closest picks the guard.
Yeah.
Then you basically have created 2 linebackers who are controlling their gaps and then going to the sideline. And you look at why he created that, because that's what the Packers did. They, we talk about the counter tray with Washington, revolutionary. All it was what Lombardi did, but you went up the gut instead of to your outsides, where you sealed your gap you sealed your A gaps in the Washington version of the counter tray, and with Green Bay you sealed some people call it C out, we called it a D gap.
I guess for people that might not understand, so because these defensive tackles are lined up on the outside of the guard
with their hip to the outside, meaning they're off the play, so they can't be engaged right when the snap.
So it's a longer run for the lineman to get to that guy, which helps
him and the linebacker behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, again, back then, we're in a different era now, and I'm not saying this is bad or good. Back then, your defensive lineman, outside of Bob Lilly and players like him, your defensive line literally was, especially in Landry's system, was literally just there to take blocks.
Yeah.
That's why, and I'm not, please, folks, I'm not trying to say Leroy Jordan and Chuck Howley and those people weren't great linebackers, but Landry created the 4-3 to funnel everything to the middle linebackers, Sam Huff, the Giants.
And, it was implemented with the 2000 Ravens.
Yep.
with Tony Saragusa, may he rest in peace, and Sam
Yeah,
Adams.
they did it with a 3-4, which is very odd. That's why at first Ray Lewis was not happy about going to a 3-4. But not then. I'm just talking about down the road. They did it with a 3. They tried to do it with a 3-4 as well. Man, seriously, I keep forgetting he's passed. That's
was recent. Yeah. So back in 2000, with the Ravens, they were 4-3, and it was Saragusa and Sam Adams up the middle. They were
played against Sam Adams.
How did it turn out for you?
We won.
Oh, good.
Played him in playoffs 1990. Now, seriously, him and Shane Rink, who went to University of Texas. Shane Rink was probably the higher rated player of the two at the time. Shane Rink was probably a better, at the time, technique defensive tackle, but Sam Adams was already large in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, not that he wasn't a good player, but he's kind of like Vince Wilfork. His size was 90%, or Gilbert Brown. Green Bay, bringing it back to Green Bay. Gilbert Brown, his size was 90% of his game.
Wilfork lost a bunch of weight recently.
Yeah, all the defensive and offensive linemen do. And yet you and I just go the opposite.
Yeah. Well, because, cheers. But yeah, so yeah, they would basically plug and block everybody else so Ray Lewis could go make the tackle, and it worked for the 2000 Ravens.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the Green Bay Dallas.
Back to the 66. Yeah. So this was one of the top 5 Packer wins.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I don't believe if Dallas would have won the first 2 Super Bowls that they name it the Landry. He was too young. He was still coaching. There's no way they name it a guy who's still alive who could end up turning out to be a terrible coach. You get lucky, you win the first. What do you think? I still think Lombardi probably gets put on the trophy because even if Dallas beats him both times, the NFL legacy of the 60s Packers were already cemented.
You have to take your mind back to the mid-60s. The Packers, before this game ends, have already won 3 NFL championships with Lombardi, with dominating or just outstanding athletes, running a simple offense with outstanding athletes, great defense, and they were doing it for years. If they didn't win the championship, they were in the contention.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was still going to be called Lombardi. They would have just said the Cowboys were, they're just on the come up. Because Tom Landry, if this situation happened in today's age, Tom Landry would have been fired in year 3.
Oh, and let's be fair. There were people, especially after the 7-7 year. So that 7-7 year, which happened in 65, that was supposed to be Dallas's big year.
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to be the year they were picked to win the division. They were picked to be a favorite. Yeah. And they kind of fell on their. Well, it's funny. They fell flat on their foot. They started the year off 3-4, and for the research for this, I was watching this big thing, and one of the Cowboys says, it was that second half of that season that really solidified what the Cowboys were going to be going forward. And I'm like, wait a minute, 3-4. Y'all finished 7-7. The first 7 games you went 3-4. So the second 7 you went 4-3. But I get what he means. Yeah. They were winning more consistently. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of people wanted Landry gone then. And Clint Murchison and Tex Schramm said, no, we this is who we are, and this is who we're going to stick with. And brilliant. Goes to show you don't always fire a guy early.
Today's NFL, he would have been gone. By year 3, because they were not that good the first 2-3 years, but you could see that they were gradually improving, and by 66 they were Super Bowl contenders, and then that's when they started becoming next year's champions, because you felt the next year they're going to win. Okay, they didn't win this year, the next year they're going to win, and it just didn't happen.
So I don't want to say this isn't a knock on George Halas at all. I think George Halas has a place in history. Okay. Obviously. But why is the NFC title trophy named the George Halas trophy? Like when I think
just because of history.
Okay, why isn't Landry? I mean, and I mean this with all sincerity.
Or Paul Brown.
Well, Paul Brown was AFC. Well, no, I guess NFL. But even then, I think if the Browns were in the NFC,
they were in AA.
But I'm talking about. We have had enough NFC championship history now. Why can't we name it off of something based in the actual NFC championship era? And that's still, 9 times.
Are you suggesting they should be called the Landry?
Yes, I really do. I think the NFC title trophy should be the Tom Landry trophy, period. Nothing against George Halas. But I mean, you just want to talk about, okay, how many times has the Bears been in the NFC title game since the NFC became the NFC? What, 4?
4 or 5, maybe
4 or 5, all in the 80s. Well, 2 in the 80s, 1 in the 2000s, 1 in the
84. I think they made it,
and then what did
85 and the 88. They
Yeah,
they had the 1
so it's
seed.
3. Yeah, it's 3 in the 80s, and then 2 in the since then.
06,
and then there was one more, wasn't there?
06, and
I thought there was one more. Maybe there's not. Anyway,
there might be.
But the point is, who has the bigger NFC lineage?
Landry.
It's Landry. All right, so this ends in the Cotton Bowl. Like I said, I think this one actually hurts as far. I mean, I say that I don't know. I wasn't living there, but me and Dad talk about it. And
I mean, Tom Landry's reaction at the end
let me go to
says it all.
Let me go to that. Oh, perfect. Okay,
Right
here we
there.
go. Here's the final play. Okay, so this is the play before, and this is one of those. If he doesn't slip, it's the Jay Novacek Cleveland game in 1994.
Yeah.
If he doesn't slip, we're talking Dallas in the Super Bowl right here. And there's nothing he can do. That's Frank Clark. By the way, Don Perkins and Frank Clark both had amazing games. Here's the final play. My dad, 3 things my dad doesn't like to watch. This play, the Ice Bowl, and Bill Mazeroski hitting the home run in 1960 against the Yankees.
Was he a big Yankees fan?
Oh, yeah. Nothing really that Meredith could do right there. You have to throw it into the end zone on 4th down. You cannot get sacked holding the ball. And so Meredith has no blame. If you look, basically, the center comes out right here, 62, and the guy cuts inside his hip too quick. I mean, that's just football 101. A great move. I think that's Willie Davis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just a great move inside, and that set the play. Because here's the thing. If that doesn't happen, Meredith can scramble for a touchdown.
Yeah, it was pretty wide open.
But yeah, so that's what loses the game for the Dallas Cowboys. This kind of starts that next year's champion. Now, here's the thing people forget. I think in people's minds, they think the Green Bay games and all that all happened at once, and then the next year they go to the Super Bowl. That's not how it happened. There was another should Landry be fired, and that's after this not making the championship game because Cleveland and Jim Brown just ran all over Dallas. Another reason why that flex, became a thing. But then we go to what I think is, has to be one of the most famous games in NFL history, wouldn't you say? I mean, I don't even think that's a debate. And that's the one thing about these two rivalries we're talking today, Green Bay and San Francisco. We're talking about games that rank in the top 5 all time.
When you give a game a nickname, it has to be an all-time great.
It's a good point.
Or at least memorable. And this game was an all-time great and memorable. 67 NFL championship. The winner goes to Super Bowl II. Packers hosting the Cowboys. It is chilly. I forgot the actual temperature, but it has to be a minus.
Like minus 19, I think.
Minus 19.
And this is the one, to me, just looking at the teams, this is the one, if this game is played in regular temperatures, this was a better team. Green Bay was on the downswing. They were 9-4-1 going into this game. They had not. And that's still a great record, but we're talking about a team that regularly went 12-2.
This was, again, they're like the 67 Packers are like the 79 Steelers, like the 95 Cowboys, like the 2018 Patriots on their last leg.
Yep.
They're a little bit older. It's about time for them to, take them out back, and take care of business. But this is our last great run. And it was in Green Bay, and it was in weathers that Dallas was not used to. And to your point, if this was played in Texas Stadium, Dallas might have won this game.
I do like what Bart Starr said about that, though. He said, everybody says it. He goes, do they really think that we were used to negative 19? It was a struggle for both teams.
They would be more used to it than the Dallas Cowboys.
And the most famous thing is that, Lombardi, very ahead of his time, had the stadium heated underneath. Now it froze, but still for that time, that was, and it did make it's the ground's bad, as you can see on the video, but think about it, if there hadn't been some kind of warming mechanism, I think the game might have been unplayable.
Yeah.
Wow, they talked crap in the signs back then. But anyway, that's the, we can talk about it all day, but everybody, I think the two things everybody remembers, I didn't mean to do that. I think the two things everybody remembers is, of course, the sneak, and I wanted to focus on that. Hang on.
Yeah.
The other one, of course, is the famous Bob Hayes. You know that story, right?
What story?
So I think it was Herb Adderley, who became a Cowboy, said that they knew when Dallas was going to throw, because whenever they would throw, Bob Hayes would have his hands in his pockets, in his little warmer.
Oh,
and then when they were going to run, he never. I mean, seriously, that's how they knew. And not that I mean, it wasn't. It's not like that would have. Dallas would have scored 40 without him, but that was a big thing. All right, so then we'll get to that. Let's get to the. Trying to get to it here. Oh, here we go. Now there's also the very famous, and this is going to be the first one.
Yeah.
Did Jerry Krause move early? He's kind of admitted that, maybe he did. It's a little thing, and it doesn't bother me. But again, we'll talk about that here in a minute with some other calls with Green Bay. It does change the game because Green Bay doesn't win.
Yeah.
And so whether you agree or not, but also I'm a big believer in that kind of stuff. That just kind of stuff happens. It's just going to happen. All right, so let's go to the next. Let's go to a Cowboy.
So that was the second of the top 5 Packer wins in this rivalry.
So can we go to my favorite Cowboy win ever in the history of this rivalry? And it's not what people think it is.
But we don't have to go in chronological order.
Oh, no. It's not what people think it is. So 1996, Dallas Cowboys.
Oh boy, okay.
Dallas Cowboys coming off another Super Bowl. They were good that year. They were going into this game. They were 7-3, which is perfectly fine, but you could tell it was different. Green Bay. Actually, I think it was Green Bay that was 7-3 or 8.
Green Bay was 8-2.
Yeah, Dallas was 7-3 or 6-3.
Yeah,
6-3.
so 96, Michael Irvin was falsely accused of something and suspended.
You mean the thing that he got found guilty of?
Suspended for 5 games for something he was falsely accused of.
But dude, dildo, still.
And the Cowboys started off 2-3.
Yeah,
with some bad losses.
Chicago Monday night being the first one.
Yeah, so
that's the game they threw the ball like 32 times to Dion, but it was all like 6-yard routes. They were Chicago was playing off of him so much that Aikman had no choice but to throw the ball to him. But that's one of those you kind of learn that. As athletic as Sanders was on punt and kick and interception returns, on actual after the catch running, he really wasn't that spectacular.
Well, mainly because he wasn't used to being a receiver.
But I'm just saying, like, I was watching that game or highlights, and again, it's hooks. There's a couple times that you're like, dude, if you spin out of that, you might score. Yeah. And again, not knocking him. I mean, again, he wasn't. This was the first time he was actually used for a predominant offense. But anyway, point is, so Dallas, things are wrong. They're still winning. The Packers, you kind of feel they'd upset San Francisco the year before. They played Dallas in a closer than you think, but kind of not against that. They were never stopping Dallas in that championship game. You figured that out early. But this was the year. They were going to finally break that streak in Texas Stadium. It was Monday night. Literally, the whole Monday night intro is Brett Favre and Reggie White and Leroy Butler all talking about, they've had our number. I was talking to Reggie White. They've had our number, but God willing, we're the better team this year, said Reggie White. And Brett Favre was like, I'm not going to start like I always start there. He did. He was always terrible starting down. And there's a reason. You know the reason why, right?
Why?
The crown.
The crown?
So all football fields, no pro football or college football. I've seen some high schools that are flat and those are terrible. Yeah. Fields have an arc.
Yes,
that's how you drain the water off the field. You don't want no matter what. You always, and we'll talk about this with the San Francisco when that famous 92 championship game. You want the wet spots outside the numbers because even in today's football, you still majorities in the hashes. And so the crown for Texas Stadium was notorious. Like if you stood on one sideline and looked across, you would not see the bottom part of people. That's how bad the crown was. And so Favre, who always kind of came out, with too much adrenaline. That's why if you ever go look, he's always overthrowing early because he's got all the adrenaline. He's hyped up, and then he's not adjusting for the crown. But anyway, so they came in. They're going to do it all. And, boy, they did. That defense shut down Dallas. They really did.
Yeah.
Dallas beats them on 7 field goals. I laughed my ass off so much. That's the only time I hate Green Bay. And it wasn't them. It was just this presumption that, they're now going to, take over. Now, in saying that, if Dallas would have beat Carolina and played in Green Bay, wait, you know what?
That was a nice, yeah.
They were the third. I was trying to say, but that tiebreaker didn't matter because of the records. I do think Green Bay would have beat Dallas in Green Bay that year. But still, I enjoy this one. I'm sorry, I meant to be playing this the whole time. I enjoyed this one just because of that. It was this is what great teams do. Great teams have last gasps.
Yeah.
And this was a last gasp. We're still going to beat you, even though you're probably better than us. And to be honest with you, dude, this is one of the few times in the 90s from 1992 to 1996 that somebody was better than Dallas, and Dallas played the underdog upstart, even with a bunch of old players.
It was a very rare, it was a very rare situation here. I mean, this was the last loss Green Bay had this season.
Yep. This was a great Green Bay team, dude.
Yeah, they went 13-3, won the Super Bowl. They kind of dominated throughout the playoffs. The Patriots probably offered them the most competitive game the whole stretch, but they ended up beating by 13 points. So this was their last blimp. I think it was just more psychological. They were kind of like the Cowboys were in the late 60s, early 70s.
So now you see why I put this one next.
Yeah,
that's the whole reason.
This is the Packers of 96 were like the Cowboys of late 60s, early 70s. People expected them to win because 93 they made the playoffs, 94 made the playoffs, ran to the Cowboys back-to-back years. 95 they get 11 wins. They can say get double-digit wins. They beat San Francisco. That was a big hurdle. Who actually won the Super Bowl the prior year? And they're flying high going to the NFC title game, competitive game. But they just couldn't stop Dallas on offense. That was basically the difference. And then now they just kept adding and adding to that team. They went 13-3. This is their last loss, and they looked bad. They did look bad in this game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But like Favre threw it almost 40 times. Didn't even throw for 200 yards.
They could not run a drop defense. This was when, and I think people, and you and I were talking about this the other day. I don't think people realize how good that 96 defense was because they didn't win a Super Bowl.
They kind of carried the Cowboys.
They carried them in this game. They carried. That was the year that there was like back-to-back. It was like 13-12s and stuff. It was so bad that the ticket had this game going that if it was 13-10, Dallas won. You won stuff because that's how close that score kept hitting. That Dallas defense was really, really good that year.
Yeah, they were beating really good. They were underdogs against the Patriots later in the season. So the Cowboys in '96 they ended up beating the teams that actually played in the Super Bowl, and they were both low scoring games.
Yep.
But this was a very big shocker to me and to a lot of Cowboy fans because I don't know how you felt going into the game. I really thought Dallas was going to lose this game.
I did too. That's why it was so much enjoyable. It was on Monday night, and like I said, it was. Let's be fair, and there will be a show where we just talk the '90s Cowboys and not what they did on the field, off the field, and all that. Let's be fair to know that the Monday Night Football crew was enjoying the idea that Dallas was going to get its comeuppance on national TV. This was, Dallas had evolved from being the cocky team to the team with drugs and hooker. That had all come out. That the White House, all that had exploded at this time.
Yeah.
And the very fact that Dallas is able to kind of have a winning season as this is starting to develop, and it really spills over into 97. And that's where you see why 97 was 6-10 and they were so bad.
Yeah.
But hey, don't worry. We're 6-10. We'll get a great draft choice. We'll rebuild. I trust Jerry. So Monday Night Football crew.
Shante Carver had a sack in this game.
Well, hey, that one wasn't as bad as Kavika Pittman.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Monday Night crew was relishing in this. The media was relishing in, because this is going to sound funny now, folks. Brett Favre used to be a good guy. Like you said, he was loved as a quarterback. He was very cocky, but in the all shucks, did I just do that way?
And relatable with his personal issues.
Well, have they come out yet?
About that point, substance
the
abuse.
pills?
Yeah, pills.
I thought he didn't admit that till the Jets.
I think the pills came out during '96.
Maybe it did. It did. But yeah, everything about him, and I liked watching him. He was fun. You never knew what you were going to get. I still kind of wonder if you give 20 other quarterbacks that exact same thing. I will say that I think the The debate on where Brett Favre ranks, I think, is a little tainted because he was allowed to be in a system that allowed him to F up. And they worked around that. Holmgren finally said, I can't fix this, so I might as well just accept it. I would love to have seen other quarterbacks get that same thing because I think, not that he wasn't great, but I think other quarterbacks could have been good in that same system like that as well. But anyway, the whole point is this was Green Bay's year, yet Dallas got one last gasp. And I've always loved that. It was always a kind of a fun thing. All right, so we're going to go to the one now that I think nobody talks about. And I don't blame them. I mean, this game didn't lead to either team winning a Super Bowl. It didn't lead to, anything that anybody remembers. But that's the 1982 playoff game. And this is the one time that these two teams play in a playoff game and then don't play in another playoff game soon. Like, this is the one just by itself outlier.
Yeah, I don't think they played another playoff game until like 11 years later.
Yeah, 94.
Yeah.
Or 93, 94. Yeah,
94. Well, yeah, so 93 season. But
I always, in my mind, because they play the Eagles and the Packers twice in that run, it feels like they played them, both of them, every year. And it's like, well, no, they didn't. They alternated because Dallas in their Super Bowl runs never had a third game.
Yeah, so the Cowboys played the Eagles in the 92 and 95 playoffs, and the Cowboys played the Packers in the 93, 94, and 95 playoffs.
Yeah.
So in 82, this was strike shortened season, 9 games. When I look back at this game, I'm like, okay, I'm glad the head coach of the Packers was not the quarterback because we probably would have lost if Bart Starr was the quarterback because, I mean, Green Bay was scoring on the Cowboys in this game.
Well, again, this is the era where Dallas started relying on the blitz. And so, they were scoring, but they also sacked Lynn Dickey like 5 times. I think they had like 4 interceptions. And this is how Dallas did it back then. They won the ball. They won the game with offense and their defense making just enough plays at key moments. And they would against certain teams. This was one of them. Dallas wins 37-26. I think for Landry, I know this didn't lead to a Super Bowl, but I think for Landry, this kind of got a monkey off his back with beating Green Bay. He had never beat Green Bay in the playoffs. And so I think that was very, very important for him. And it led to Dallas and Washington in one of the most famous, and of course, we'll be talking about that here in a couple months, one of the most famous, title games in NFC history. And again, I told you, when I think of Green Bay, this is that type of team. I think of Lynn Dickey, high flying. They threw the ball a lot for back then. They had great wide receivers.
Oh, yeah, Hall of Famer James Lofton.
Jefferson came over for San Diego.
John Jefferson,
He never quite reached the San Diego level, but he was still really, really solid. And then again, Lynn Dickey, he was, Lynn Dickey, Steve Barkowski, Dan Pastorini. And I think Dickey and Barkowski are better passers than Pastorini, but they're in that level from the 70s and 80s that were good, but just not quite good enough for whatever reason. And I don't mean them, but I'm talking about their teams to get over that, for Houston, the AFC title game, for Atlanta, the second round, because they always had to play Dallas and teams like them, even though they did beat Philadelphia one year. And then Lynn Dickey was just always hurt. He could never be consistently healthy. And I remember watching this game. And so that's one of it was just fun watching this game because all I knew about Green Bay, and I'm 7 at this time. I'm still in that age where I don't know the difference between 1967 Green Bay and 1982 Green Bay. I'm thinking it's all the same team.
Right.
In fact, I think it was when it was Bart Starr as your coach, and I'm like, oh wait, wasn't he the that's when I started realizing, this is two different eras. Anyway, that's the other one. Let's now go to which one do you go to next?
We can keep going in order. I mean, we could start with the 93 game, the divisional round, 93-94 season.
Yeah. And this was when you have Dallas coming off the Super Bowl, coming off that famous, Giants game with the shoulder. You didn't really know how much Emmett would play in this game. And he does get banged up in this game. And so this one was, as a Cowboy fan, I very much remember I was more worried about this game than I was the San Francisco game, simply because how healthy Emmett was. And at the time, that's when, we didn't realize yet that Aikman would shine against the Packers. I mean, the Packers are one of those teams that he could just throw all day on. Let's be honest, this offense just dominated this Packers defense through this run. If the Packers offense, outside of not being consistent with turnovers, that's their only issue against Dallas. They moved the ball well against Dallas. They just couldn't stop Dallas. They never stopped Dallas in this era until 96, which Dallas won. They didn't stop Dallas at all in these playoff games.
Yeah,
or in the regular season game, what was it 94? They had a regular 93 too.
Well, 94 Thanksgiving.
Well, in 93 though, regular season, because that was Emmett's second game back, and that was the first game in the season. I think he had like 85 yards and 2 touchdowns or so. You started seeing, okay, he's coming off that holdout rest.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking when you look at this Packers defense because they had John Jerkovich for a bit, they had Reggie White. They had Gilbert Brown.
And they were good against everybody else.
They were good against everybody.
They even stopped San Francisco well.
For some reason, the Dallas offense, as simple as it was, because they had excellent talent at tight end, at fullback, at wide receiver, at running back, they could just out-talent the Packers. And I think the Packers were just so good during this time period because they had the right players at the right positions, but they could take advantage of these other teams that didn't have an all-time great running back, an all-time great fullback, an all-time great receiver. Dallas just had all this, obviously because of free agency and the salary cap, they all got depleted. But for this time period, the Packers just could not compete because this is one of the rare occurrences where their talent and grit was no match for better talent on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. And honestly, I kind of wonder if back then, if maybe Holmgren didn't really value defense as much.
Probably. I mean, because if you look at that defense, there's so much talent. There's Simmons, there's Kuntz, there's
the player.
Yes.
Sorry, my bad.
Kuntz.
Sir, what? I don't want to do all that.
Leroy Butler, Eugene Robinson, who had a lot of funny off the field.
I want to talk about Leroy Butler.
Okay.
This is off the records. You want to know how? Because I'm literally going, he should not be in the Hall of Fame over Darren Woodson. Both of them should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying Leroy Butler shouldn't be.
But if one needs to be in before the other.
It's Darren Woodson.
Yeah.
And I don't even just mean the Super Bowls. Go look at what Darren Woodson, to me, is a lot like Deion Sanders, where they did maybe their best work in the late 90s when Dallas wasn't as good.
Yeah.
And so that tends to be forgotten. Darren Woodson, 1998. No, actually, he was an All-Pro, I think, in 98. Darren Woodson in 2000 is an All-Pro if he's on a good team.
Yeah.
He's on a bad team. You always forget safeties on bad teams.
Yep.
You never talk about great safeties on bad teams. And for any Green Bay fans, I'm going to tell you right now, I love Leroy Butler.
Oh, me too.
One of the things, if you're new to this show and you're a Green Bay fan and you see all the Cowboys stuff and this is a Cowboys show, understand that intern Noah and I, we love all teams, even Philadelphia. We don't like. I
love the Eagle fan passion.
That's the part I hate about them. I hate their fans because they're terrible. They're not good people.
They're not, but
I'm gonna.
It's great. I acknowledge that it's great TV to watch.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. But my point is we're not hating on Leroy Butler because he's Green Bay. I'm saying that Darren Woodson gets underrated in that era, and he's almost made the Hall of Fame a couple times, and I think he will get in. I think because for some reason, some players, and I don't know why it has to be Cowboys, but like Drew Pearson, Cliff Harris, Chuck Howley. For some reason, I don't know. I think it's because people, and I think we talked about this last year. I think people still have it in their head with Dallas. It's Landry and the system.
Yeah.
And you got to realize this. And it's funny because there are going to be 4 Cowboys that go into the Hall of Fame from the 20-teens team that did nothing, and they all deserve it. DeMarcus Ware, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, and Jason Witten.
Yeah.
They're all going in.
No, yeah.
And they deserve it. Yet, like Darren Woodson, who won 3 Super Bowls, was a vital part of that.
And he is the biggest hope that the 92 class, the 92 NFL draft class, gets someone in the Hall of Fame.
That's when we, again, as 20 years from now, when we're wearing diapers for real reasons and not just because we like to, and we're doing these shows, we're going to be doing like worst draft classes, best draft classes. for the league, not for a team. Well, we'll do something for the team too. But
we can talk about the 92 Colts.
92 is one of the worst drafts of all time. But anyway.
But the Cowboys still got Darren Woodson and Kevin Smith in that draft.
Yep. And Kevin Smith's another one. I think if he doesn't tear his Achilles, A, there might not ever be a Dion in Dallas. B, I think he was headed to a illustrious Hall of Fame type career.
Yeah.
He was everything that Dion was, just without quite the elite speed. And then when he tore his Achilles, I mean, even now it's tough, but especially back then. He played another 5 years.
Yeah.
And he was not terrible. Let's understand. He was still solid, but he wasn't what he was supposed to be. But anyway, this is the first time in the playoffs in that 90 era. The Dallas Cowboys win 27-17. Dallas jumped out early. Green Bay kind of crawled back in, but I can remember it never felt like it was a 10-point game. It always, again, this kind of, you realize they couldn't stop Dallas.
I mean, I'm just looking here.
That's one of the most iconic plays right there.
Alvin Harper falling on his head.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Troy Aikman, all that talent on the defensive line I just mentioned. No pressure at all.
Yeah. I want to show you one thing. This always, I never paid attention to this until I read the books about the Cowboys. Watch Jay Novacek after he catches it. He tries to check on him, and because Alvin's being Alvin, which if you read the books, he was pretty high on himself. You can tell Novacek is just go, all right, dude, whatever. Watch. I love this. By the way, it's after this one. Laser throw coming up. Come on, hurry up.
Good execution by the
Dildo
playmaker.
Irvin.
The playmaker.
Is this it? Was it third? Yeah, here it is. All right, here we go. All right. Oh, no, one more. God dang it. You see enough of these plays, you think you can guess them, but I've also seen so many of these plays. They all look
another third and short for the first down by Jay Novacek. That was his staple.
That's what he did. All right, here we go. All right, now watch Novacek after Harvard catches it. Watch. He's going to check on him. Are you okay? Are you okay? Fuck it. See? You see? He's like, whatever, dude. You're already in celebration mode. You're okay. Anyway, so this game it's one of the top 5 because it's a playoff game. And you and I have talked about this. Winning a Super Bowl makes you great.
Yeah.
Winning a second Super Bowl, especially consecutive, makes you legendary. And this was the game that you go, okay, Emmett's okay.
Yep.
He's fine. The team's fine. They're going to be fine. We're all happy. Right? All right. So let's flip back one more.
Okay.
Let's go back to 1970.
So this was the 1970s. This was the Cowboys' first win versus the Packers. And this was around the time, like we mentioned, where they were still being viewed as next year's champions. This was in week 11. Cowboys beat the Packers 16-3, a very defensive heavy game.
Well, I mean, for back then, 16 was pretty high scoring.
Yeah. So in 1970, Vince Lombardi had recently passed away. He had left the Packers after the 67 season. So this is 68, 69. So this is 3 seasons later. Packers are kind of on the downturn. And this is the Cowboys' chance. This is the last year at the Cotton Bowl. Bart Starr still under center. And Cowboys, the 70 season, as we all know, they ended up making their first Super Bowl, Super Bowl 5. It was the first Super Bowl in post-merger. So the Cowboys were technically the first NFC champions in NFC history.
Kind of adds credence to it. Should be the Tom Landry Trophy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they probably should have made that as a rule. Like, hey, whoever wins this NFC title game, coach gets the...
Dude, that would be awesome if they did that and then advertise that as part of the game. Whoever wins goes to the Super Bowl. But more importantly, we name the game after them.
Yeah. With, of course, John Facenda doing the speech.
Yep.
But yeah, dominating defensive effort by the Cowboys. They were starting to hum toward the second half of this season. They kind of struggled early, but with Craig Morton Company and that defense, they were just on a roll. They had a pretty bad loss. We've covered a lot of the 70s season just through season 1 of Look Back when we did last season over the Cowboys' 5 Super Bowl wins. We kind of went through their history from 60 to 95. And then here we talked. This is the first. Again, they struggled early, but they went on a roll. They had a bad loss to the Cardinals, which we talked about in our 70s honorable mention. But yeah, it was just a low-scoring game, which was pretty typical of this time period. But yeah, defense dominated. Cowboys win. This is on the top 5 because this is the first Cowboy win, and they were trying to get that next year's champ moniker off their back. They were just trying to just pushed through. And they were on their way, but this was still a very frustrating time for Cowboy fans because you knew they were good enough to win a Super Bowl, but they just needed to do it.
You want to talk about frustrating times?
Current.
Well, this one especially.
Oh, we're going to the 2014 divisional round matchup between the Cowboys and Packers. This is Tony Romo's finest season. Cowboys get the 3 seed.
Best chance for them to win a Super Bowl, in my opinion, in the last 20 years.
So in 2014, the season ended with 3 teams at 12-4: Cowboys, Seahawks, and Packers. Because of tiebreaker rules, even though the Cowboys beat the Seahawks, the Cowboys had the 3 seed and the Seahawks had the 1 seed. The Packers had the 2. Romo grew up a Brett Favre fan, so this is kind of like a dream come true for him to play in Lambeau Field as an undrafted player with, there's former Packer coach Mike McCarthy, current Cowboy coach Mike McCarthy. Cowboys dominated the early parts of this game. This is probably the best opportunity for the Cowboys with Romo to make it to the NFC title game outside of 2007. They dominated, and this game will probably be remembered for a hobbly Aaron Rodgers leading them back.
Nobody remembers that.
I remember that
because
I was so angry because I knew this Cowboy defense was not good at all.
No, they weren't.
But the fact that Rodgers was hobbling around, I was like, okay, maybe we can get some sacks and stop some crucial drives. And we did early, like we see here on this sack.
And DeMarcus Lawrence played one of the best games of his career in this game.
And no one talks about it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but let's be honest. Everybody remembers this for one reason and one reason only.
Was it a catch?
Was it a catch? I contend, though, and I love this player, but let's put more of the onus on DeMarco Murray's fumble. Because Dallas feels like they are legitimately about to salt this game away.
What a touchdown by Terrence Williams, who had a great year this year.
Dude, he was...
Clutch catch against the Seahawks in the regular season.
He's going to be remembered for the end of his career and the weird thing where he somehow got in a wreck and then drove up on his own wreck. Like, what happened? Legendary, by the way, for trying that. But
it's like a crackhead stealing from you and then coming back
and then wanting to,
dude. Yep. You want me to help you find that
or sell it to you?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, your radio got sold. Well, here, let me sell you this one. But I think people forget that, in my opinion, he was a top 5, number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like he was really, really solid. Everybody remembers the Romo ducking JJ Watts. Well, it's Terrence Williams that he's throwing to.
Yeah.
As you talk about, he had a big game against the Seahawks. He had a big game in Detroit. Remember, Dallas is down to Detroit 2 scores, and they get Terrence Williams on like a 65-yarder or something that kind of got them back into the game. But yeah, this game is going to be remembered for the Dez Bryant catch. We'll talk about, we have that in the plays. We have top plays of the series. So I'm not going to show that right now. We'll show that in the top plays we want to talk about.
Yeah. The 2014 Cowboys were a team that's kind of similar to 2016. In the sense they had a superior offensive line. They did not have a good defense. So they decided to just use clock management and keep the ball away from the offense of the other team. And for the most part, this season, they won 12 games this season. They had the ball for at least 35 minutes, which the game's 60 minutes long. Keeping the ball away from the opponent's offense.
Look at that.
Keeps them out of sync and out of rhythm. Yeah, we're looking at the DeMarco Murray sack or fumble.
I mean, that's not too much. I mean, not right at the goal line, of course, but where the fumble happens and where he is in relations to the play is kind of like the Ernest Biner Cleveland. It's the guy, it's the end who's already been beat.
Yeah.
Tackle kicked him out perfectly, but give the end credit. He reaches, and I think DeMarco Murray had gotten kind of a little lax, thinking he was already through the hole. If that fumble doesn't happen, DeMarco Murray scores. It's 17-10, and I just think the whole tilt of the game changes.
You bring up a good point, momentum. At that point of the fumble, the Cowboys had momentum. And like you said, if he had scored, it would have been almost over at that point. But yeah, the fumble kind of brought the Packers offense back in the game. Cowboys offense was still doing well, But yeah, you can see right here, Romo
And
struggling.
by the way, I was just going to say, you talk about Rodgers. Romo was pretty banged up in this game too. And in fact, let's be fair, and they showed it on here. It didn't matter because they scored a touchdown, but on his first touchdown throw, he took a shot at the knees that should have been a penalty. Even back then, you couldn't go at the quarterback's knees, and that should have been called. But Romo was pretty beat up as well. Anyway, so we're not going to show the play because we will show the play here in a second. So now let's go to. I think honestly, I say the Monday night's my favorite, and it is just because again of what it meant and all that fun stuff. But I think is this it? No, that's not it. Where's it?
Well, we talked about
Here
96.
No, here we go. This is truly my favorite. Cowboy, Green Bay, everything. And it's not just the fact that the Cowboys win this game, they go to a Super Bowl. It's not just the fact that, hey, thank God it wasn't San Francisco, because let's be fair.
Well, it would have been in San Francisco.
I don't think Dallas.
Oh, no, wait. This is the N95 title game, right?
Yeah, it would have been in San Francisco.
So, actually, no, because
San Francisco was the 1 seed.
they were the 2. Because they lost to Atlanta.
That's right. That's the Christmas day. Sorry.
They should have been the 1 seed.
Yeah, they should have been the 1 seed.
That was a Christmas miracle.
And they would have got Philadelphia instead of Green Bay in the first round.
And who knows what would have happened then.
But I have a weird personal story with this one. So I was living in Dallas at the time.
Okay.
I was working security at an office building off of the tollway. If you've been in Dallas, I can't remember the name of the towers, but it's very famous when you're just south of or just north of 635. It's the big building that has the big arch tunnel, whatever you want to call it, in the middle. And so they're one office building, but they were, Tower A, Tower B. And so in one of the towers, I had to work on a Sunday afternoon. One of the towers is where Fox Television was. Now, it wasn't a studio. I think it was their administrative and probably sales.
Okay.
Anyway, I went into their office as working and watched the game. And I just always thought it was kind of cool watching the Fox television show on the Fox TV stuff. And anyway, that's my memory. But this is also just a fun game. This was one of those games where, again, the shine of Dallas, the game kind of was perfect of what Dallas was that year. Started out hot. Green Bay kind of starts to come back in the middle, and then Dallas closes it out at the end. But it was very, very obvious early in this one, at least in my opinion, that Green Bay was never going to stop Dallas. Like, Dallas would still be scoring if they were playing today.
Man, this was an all-time great game. It was, again, like they were the 79 Steelers, the 67 Packers. They were on their last legs, but they could still score a lot of points, which they were doing throughout the whole season, except for that 3-game lull they had toward the end. But yeah, no, here's a block punt by the Packers.
That's the thing you and I talked about. We always think of Joe Avasano. You always think of a couple onside kicks, a couple fake punts, Dallas blocking some punts.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, in 2 of the biggest games, the first Super Bowl and this one, they had blocked punts that could have really impacted the game that luckily didn't.
Yeah. In this game, I always remember Favre started off so slow. He was 0 for 7, I believe.
And that was what he did in Dallas every year.
He always was slow starter, but like I guess it was more magnified to me in the NFC title game.
It was, yeah.
Dallas, I mean, here's Deion Sanders high stepping. I think that was his problem. I think he needed better training as a receiver if they were going to really use him as a receiver. He was just such a great talent. They were like, okay, yeah, just go out wide, just play like it's backyard football. No big deal. Here's Michael Irvin with the touchdown because he's a playmaker and does everything right.
2 touchdowns in like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Dallas jumped out 14-3.
This
was 14-3.
Probably like, it was a career year offensively for Michael Irvin and for Edmund Smith. They were just
yet the offense struggled at so many key points for so long at times.
And it was mostly like toward the end of the season and then the San Francisco game. But yeah.
You know who they missed?
On this 95. Oh, Alvin Harper?
Yeah. As much as I like Kevin Williams, I think Kevin Williams is vastly underrated.
Yeah.
Kevin Williams should have been in the slot. Alvin Harper should have been out wide.
Yeah.
I legitimately, and knowing Alvin Harper, if he ever hears this, that head's going to get this big because that's what he's known for. But I legitimately think if Alvin Harper's on this team, they roll through and just destroy teams. And they did early. And then they struggled in the middle, and then they kind of came out the back end. Same way the Super Bowl plays out.
So they were 12-4 and a 1 seed. So what would their record have been had they had Harper? Would they have swept Washington?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That was such a weird time that they couldn't beat Washington.
Yeah.
Again, that started all
2 of their 4 losses were to Washington.
Rumors that Troy was purposely throwing the game for Norv Turner and all that. I don't know if the record actually changed. Well, I say that. I mean, Alvin Harper against San Francisco. I mean, that dude tore up San Francisco.
But
you're not allowing. You're then forcing Dallas. You know what San Francisco did so well defensively is they were able to control Kevin Williams because Kevin Williams just wasn't that big of a wide receiver size wise, and Alvin Harper, they just never could do that. I mean, that's why, you know, out of the 3 biggest catches in a title or San Francisco Cowboy history, 2 of them are Alvin Harper because he just ate them up.
So you see here a long touchdown to Robert Brooks. For people that don't remember, this is 95 playoffs. The previous year in the regular season, their best player was Sterling Sharp,
who got hurt
at the regular season finale against Tampa Bay, and it was forced to retire. So in the 94 playoffs, Sharp,
if I'm not mistaken, he has the same thing that happened to him that happened to Irvin. I think it's that narrowing of the spine or the neck. I think that's the same thing he had.
Well, I couldn't remember. It was so he was in season 7, I think, of his career. He was still a young guy, like 28, 29.
Dude, he was challenging Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin as best receivers.
He was getting 100 catches a year when that was not a thing.
Yeah, still wasn't a thing.
So yeah, Sterling Sharp, and he was a much more like bigger receiver compared to everybody else as far as like weight. He was just a very muscular guy, like maybe a 3 inches shorter Megatron.
Yeah, he was even bigger than Irvin. You're right.
Yeah, so he was a big dude, but he was fast, and Favre loved Sterling Sharp. Go back and look at his 93, 94 tape. Sterling Sharp was unbelievable.
But
yes, I know you have the thing you want to say about Sterling Sharp.
Oh no, I mean, just you talk to Brett Favre and them, and a lot of people say that they don't know if they win a Super Bowl if Sterling Sharp's there. Sterling Sharp's admitted that maybe at times he was a little too, you get me the ball or there's hell to pay. I think that's the one thing that Michael Irvin always balanced really well. Yeah. I think that's the one thing Jerry Rice balanced really well. I think all great wide receivers.
All the great players in any sport, they just want to win.
They want to win, but receivers want the ball too.
They want the ball. Well, Terrell Owens said, hey, I want to win, and I feel the team is in the best position to win if the ball's in my hand.
Exactly.
To his point, he is correct.
So in 92, 93, he had 108 and 112 receptions. In 94, his last career, he had 94 receptions, but he had 18 touchdowns. This dude was a wide receiver getting MVP votes.
Yeah.
Sterling Sharp was headed to be a better wide receiver than Jerry Rice, possibly.
And this was back in the time where MVP votes for a receiver were not common.
Yeah, well, they're not really common now either. It's just line up whatever Joe Blow quarterbacks want.
Well, I mean, like think about like Justin Jefferson. He's a guy that could possibly get some, or Megatron. He's a guy.
Well, Irvin in 95.
Irvin 95.
I think he did get. He
was getting 100 yards every week and a touchdown every.
Well,
week.
he had Cup.
Cooper Kupp and 2020 or 2021, yeah.
And I thought somebody else last year did.
So Cooper Kupp had the NFL. He was the NFL Offensive Player of the Year in 2021, and he was the Super Bowl MVP.
And he tied Irvin's consecutive 100 yard stretch. But I thought somebody else did it since then, or at least got close.
I know.
Oh, CeeDee Lamb almost did it. CeeDee Lamb was close. He had 5 in a row or 6 in a row. But anyway, I this is why you and I always talk about this. I think that Michael Irvin, even though people rate him as a Hall of Famer, rate him as great, I think he gets undersold when you start talking top 10 of all time. I think Michael Irvin's a top 5 wide receiver of all time. I think for what he did in the system that he did with the chances that he did compared to everybody else, I think he deserves that.
Yeah, this was a system built on first half passing offense, second half rushing offense. He wasn't asked to do much in the second half. It was mostly in the first half. He was getting all of his yards. There was, of course, the key games during the season where he played 4 whole quarters. But for the most part, if they were playing against a superior team, they won 38-3. He's done by midway through the third quarter.
All right, so I'm gonna pick that 95 year. This is why I love this show. We're hour and 18 in, and we're so off script. We're having so much fun. So 1995, Michael Irvin, his 100 yards or 100 catch season.
Yeah.
111 catches, 1,600 yards, and 10 touchdowns. That's great. All right. So we're going to go to Sterling Sharp's 1992 season. Oh, no, we'll go 90. Yeah, we'll go 92.
95 was a crazy year for receivers, though.
Yeah, because that's when you started. That's when teams started realizing if they're off the line, throw it quick, throw the slant, all that. But anyway, Sterling Sharp in 1992, 108 receptions. So he had 3 less receptions than Michael Irvin. He was targeted 3 less times. That lines up. All right.
Mm-hmm.
2 great receivers having great years. But let's go to Sterling Sharp's other 100 reception year, and that's 93 when he had 112 receptions. Okay. He had 189 targets. When Michael Irvin had 112 receptions, he had 165 targets. That's a 20-something targets.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference, folks.
And it means more in the sense that the number 2 receiver was Kevin Williams and not Alvin Harper.
Well, yeah, but my point is Irvin had similar stats to Sharp with 20 less receptions for the season. Yeah. For the career, Sterling Sharp, and I'm going off Pro Football Reference. I know targets can't be 100% perfect, but they've done all the tape and all that. Well, would you not love to have been that job? They went all through all the tape and stuff. And so for the career, Sterling Sharp from 1988 to 1994 had 510 targets.
Okay.
Michael Irvin for 1988 to 1999 had 960 targets, 400 more targets.
Yeah.
But for basically 5 more years, 10 more targets that if Sterling Sharp would have played those years, he was going to outpace Michael Irvin's targets 3-1.
Yeah.
That's why I go back to that Michael Irvin legitimately is very underrated, even though he's in the Hall of Fame, all that. Michael Irvin did more with less targets than anybody else did.
When you say underrated, you mean, when I'm asked who's the top 5 receivers
he's
of all
rarely
time,
brought up unless you're a Cowboy fan or somebody that is a fan of the NFL that watched him enough to know that he's a top 5 receiver. Yeah. And you could even make the case he's top 4. I mean, you really, really can, folks.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's funny because we went through it in the 90s where people started looking back at Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
Is he really that good? And I was one of those. Then I really started watching he was, maybe not as good, but he was pretty darn good.
I was in that same boat just because of the first 2 Super Bowls and how they won it. But I mean, even I have to admit, he was an MVP in 78 or 79. Exactly. They won those last 2 Super Bowls because they went more pass oriented. The running backs were getting old. They needed to rely more on the quarterback and receiving game, and he delivered.
Now, that's kind of being done with Aikman now. And I get it. His stats, when you try to compare them, they're not great. But folks, if you didn't live that time and watch that time, and I'm not even talking about as a Cowboy fan, watch it as non-Cowboy fans. I'm sitting here doing all this research, and I pull up the 93 game, and when I'm editing them, I have the sound on. I mean, listening to them and stuff. And John Madden, before the 93 October game, said Troy Aikman right now is the best quarterback in the NFL. So if all these people that value John Madden, if John Madden said that, I don't think he's wrong.
They were a victim of their own excellence during this time period.
And their own style.
They were more pass-oriented in the first half. If they were up 14-3 in the second half, they would just start running the ball. If it was 3rd and short and they couldn't run it, they would throw it to Novacek to get a first down. It was a very simple offense, but extremely effective. But it didn't really – the only person that was really going to get a lot of stats was Emmett and maybe Irvin. But typically it was going to be Emmett.
Irvin got into it a couple times if there was, shootouts. And again, he put up 1,000-yard seasons. We're not acting like he was a 400-yard receiver. He was putting up, 5 straight 1,000 yards, 8 out of 9 years, or 7 out of 8, something like that.
We're talking about 8, 9 of their wins were going to be this way, where they were going to get 2 to 3 scores in the first half, limit the opposing defense to, opposing team's offense to 10 points, be up double digits going into the second half, and just run. So Aikman would get almost 200 yards in the first half, but then maybe have 20 after.
Yeah. All right. So I think we've talked the games to death. So we're going to now go to the best plays Now, these are,
I'm surprised you didn't bring up one.
what?
The 2016 game.
I have it. It's in the plays. It's in the plays.
Okay.
So sometimes on we use the plays as honorable mention for those games. And also, God, I just couldn't look at Aaron Rodgers' face too much longer, dude.
Yeah, that was a top 5 Packer win in our opinion.
Yes, it was. It was a great game. That's a great game. I actually meant to message you the other day, but you were really busy at work, and so I realized now, man, that's a really fun game. Like, I almost watched the entirety. It was fun, man. Now I want that Dak back. I want that Dak in that second half. I want Dak. I want the big Dak. Remember that? Oh, you don't watch American Dad. But I want that Dak back. That was, I don't know. I will always contend that Atlanta Falcon game changed something about Dak.
The next season,
the sack game, as I refer. That I think that was you and I have been watching football now for 12 years together.
Yeah.
That was the first game I think we both were ready to cry.
So in 2017, Tyron Smith was out, and then also Zeke was serving a 6-game suspension. Dallas lost the first 3 games and then won the next 3. That was the main reason why they didn't make the playoffs in 2017, but this was the first game in that suspension, and they played the Falcons, and because of Tyron Smith out and no Zeke, Dak was running for his life.
Wasn't it the same defensive end that had destroyed Doug Free for Minnesota in the 2009 game? Wasn't that the same guy?
Maybe. I can't remember.
But anyway.
And that kind of catapulted Atlanta back into the playoffs. I think to this day, it's still been the last time the Falcons have been back in the playoffs.
Yeah, it was. But anyway, so here we go. These are our top plays as decided by us, by a vote of
by
2.
a panel of our peers.
I asked Bill Belichick, but he was busy. All right, here we go. I don't even remember what order.
Roasting somebody.
I don't remember what order this is. What play is this?
Mistake. Favre on a first down play.
Oh, this is just okay. This is 2 plays into one. As we talked,
this is a 95 NFC title game.
As we talked about back and forth, this is the 2 plays or 3 plays really. So I want to say this: as much as 95 Dallas struggled at times.
Okay.
I want to put this bigger. I meant to. Hang on. No, not you. Golly. These 3 plays show you when Dallas was engaged and connected, what they could do.
Play tries to force it to Mark Ingram, who changed his route. Larry Brown picks it off and runs back to midfield. And the Cowboys would catch.
Wait a minute. So Chris Berman sees how Larry Brown gets the interception in this game and notices that Mark Ingram changed his route. Why does Neil O'Donnell take so much crap in Pittsburgh game when that's both wide receivers have literally said, blitz call. We didn't, whatever. We didn't. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Because he was wide open twice. And it looked like Neil O'Donnell was throwing right at Larry Brown.
Thank you, Neil O'Donnell.
Cash in. Good teams do. That's what the Cowboys are. Aikman.
So play one on offense.
Juggling catch against Evans. Finally knocked out of bounds by Teague. Joe, great play.
Most guys would quit when they know they had the interference call, but
and by the way, folks, y'all don't know this. He's not quite as angry about it as he used to be. But Joe Theismann giving Dallas, especially this era, Cowboys, any credit. You could tell it's like this because I don't have the beginning of this. There's a part where there's a penalty. That should have been a pick play. That should have been he just goes on for 3 seconds. I'm like, dude, chill out. So hearing him now be like, that's
not Michael Irvin. That's what makes him so special and so unbelievable.
So 1st and 10 from the 16, Emmitt Smith. And what a job by the line. Nobody touched him. It was reminiscent of the place we saw the first half of the season for the Cowboys. 38 to.
That's not the
end zone celebration by Emmitt,
Well, and so one of the things I don't like about him in that era, and it's not that I love celebrating, it's the Reebok taking off the helmet. It just looks stupid. It wasn't that I love celebrating. You and I both love celebrations. I don't want anybody to think that.
So my mom always hated that he took his helmet off to celebrate. Just to, she just hated that.
Yeah, it's just you just didn't do that back then. Why is that? Oh, no, I'm going to have to show these. Oh, wait. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. This is the great plays, and we'll just go through them.
He usually doesn't wake up much before 1 or 2.
Oh, yeah. This is my favorite Aikman throw of all time.
This is the one to Alvin Harper?
Yes.
In the 94 playoffs?
Yes, when they're wearing the double stars.
Okay.
Again, this is one of those moments in games that kind of get lost because they lose the next week in the NFC Championship game.
So 94 season was the 75-year anniversary of the NFL.
I always love how you feel the need to I love that about you. You're a storyteller. You feel the need to build the backstory to the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what our audience is right now.
I'm sorry. What?
I'm kidding. We are growing every day, so just to make sure everybody is in the know. This was
our
94,
drinkers.
Yeah, this 94 season. That's
the name of our crew. That's our audience.
The OutDrankers.
No, they're just the drinkers.
Oh, the drinkers.
Welcome, drinkers. I love it. All right. Anyway, so go ahead.
So yeah, 75-year anniversary. Every team was encouraged to wear throwback or unique uniforms. The 49ers did.
What were your thoughts on the 90s double stars? Did you like them?
No, I didn't really care. Yeah.
I liked them.
I figured you would.
I mean, I didn't love them. I would love to have seen. I would love for them to bring the blue ones back, that same color blue with the white pants.
Okay.
I think if you'd have done that,
kind of like what they do now.
Yeah, but those double star blues are different color though.
Yeah,
like if you ever go back and look, they're more of a royal blue. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I would like that. I don't mind them. These right now basically are the color rush.
Yeah,
with white pants, but I didn't hate them. Anyway, so here goes, in my opinion, the greatest throw by Troy.
Emmett Smith and Darryl Johnston behind Troy Aikman. Jay Novacek is the movement. And Aikman will throw out of the end zone. Firing deep. He's got Harper. Alvin Harper.
Now, I don't know if the production team got tipped off because if people don't know, every Friday or Saturday, the production team meets with certain players and the coaches for every game, whether it be regular season, preseason. If the game's being broadcast anywhere, whether it be radio or TV, Friday nights, usually Friday night, sometimes Saturday, that's production day. And so that's where teams, especially if they feel they trust the broadcast, and if you're the Cowboys, you're on national Fox all the time. Pat Summerall lives in Dallas. You trust these guys. You will tip them off. You will say things like, if we're inside our 5, watch out. We're going to go deep to Alvin Harper on the post if it's there, or watch out Emmett Smith if he breaks it. And so the very fact that Fox Live had that behind the back camera showing, brilliant. Because I don't know if the play it looks as pretty, because there's just something, again, you want to talk about the accuracy of Troy Aikman. He throws it dead to a spot and lets Alvin Harper go get it in stride.
Yep.
I just think that's beautiful. And again, this is why I go back to
the Green Bay
30, if Alvin Harper would have just, I get it, take the money, but man, if you'd have stayed, dude.
Hall of Fame.
See, I like the actual jersey. I just don't think it looks good with those pants.
I like simplistic more. Just the white jersey.
Look at that. Oh,
and I'm more inclined to go more silver pants instead of the neon green, whatever they try to do.
We saw this one. We'll go ahead and talk over this one. Hey, at least you finally realized I was right on that.
Yeah,
I told you
I guess. Well, you kind of pointed it, or you shed a light to it. So once I started, like, okay, yeah.
The 1983 season for me, we go to the Cowboys.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. I don't remember a lot about that game, but the one thing I remember is, and my dad had been to games in the 70s.
Yeah,
and I guess you just didn't think to tell me. And we already saw this earlier, but I still remember you know how Texas Stadium was in a bowl, and so you came out of the walkway and you're over the stadium.
Yeah.
So we're catty corner to where the Cowboys come in and out, and they're Danny White and all them are walking, and they're wearing green pants.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's warm up. That's weird. It's warm up. They come out wearing green pants, and that's when my dad had to explain to me, like, yeah, what you see on TV, but it was brilliant because on TV. You couldn't see that.
Yeah.
These pants right there, what they're wearing right now, even those right here. Okay, here we go.
Here's one down the sideline. Pass caught by Des Bryant. They're going to mark him inside the 1. And a brilliant catch by number 88.
All right, so we all know what happens next. It gets reviewed. It gets taken away. I don't know about the rule then. It was a stupid rule then.
Yeah.
They literally a couple years later quietly kind of took it out and basically admitted. I appreciate the NFL literally admitted, like, yeah, that probably should have been a catch. My issue has always been one thing, though, and you know where I'm going with this because I say this all the time and nobody's ever answered it.
He's just not able to contend.
Okay, let me see if I get the angle. Okay, my contention is the ball never touched the ground. And nobody ever talks about that. Okay, so watch. Okay, here it is. This is the one. Okay, so he's diving down, right? You see him. First off, that's a catch. Right there should have been a catch.
Yeah.
He's making a football move, all that. But anyway, even on that, the ball's not touching the ground right there.
To them, they say the ball, the ground caused the ball to juggle.
It doesn't matter. If he ended up with the ball, it's still a catch. He's in the field of play. That only matters if you're out of bounds and the ball bounces up and you land. He is in the field of play right here. This, outside of that rule, should have been a catch.
Preaching to the choir. I agree.
But no, my issue is nobody's ever actually addressed that part. Nobody's ever said what you just said. Yeah. If they said, well, we think the ball, which by the way, you're not supposed to do on a review. You're not supposed to think. And what I mean by that, you're not supposed to assume. That's why sometimes, like, what game was it? Was it last year or 2 years ago against Philadelphia? Dak does the quarterback sneak and doesn't get in.
Oh, it was
I think it was last year.
This past season in Philadelphia.
It was obvious he got in, but you could never actually see that the ball crossed the line. Yeah. And the official even said that we cannot see the ball. So if they'd have just said, oh, we think, but it does not touch the ground. Yeah. Look.
3rd down, inches to go.
Oh, screw you two. You know what? I hate Green Bay.
But yeah, you never clearly see it hit the ground. So yeah, it definitely has to be a catch. And I was telling you, worst case, it's considered a fumble that Dez recovers in the end zone for a touchdown.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. You could even call it that. Either way, I guess I do want to say this. This play, the Seattle slippery fumble with Tony Romo.
Oh, on the extra point or field goal. Yeah.
This doesn't win the game for Dallas.
Correct, because the Packers were starting to run wild on offense.
Well, I mean, I don't care even if they had been shut down. There was still time for – I mean, this isn't like with a minute left. There's 3 minutes left, I think, when he did that.
But the Cowboys were going to be up 2 scores if they scored a touchdown on this.
I know, but I'm just saying, the game wasn't over.
Game was not over.
And we all know that one of the most negative things about when you run for first downs is – it doesn't always work. And I'm just saying that one and the Seattle one, I think people in their mind think, oh, Dallas wins the game if they – no, they don't.
They don't, yeah.
They wouldn't have been up 2 scores on this.
I think they would have been up 33-21.
They were down when this happened. That's why it was so –
I thought they were up on that.
No, they were down. This was that was it. Like, they didn't have another chance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's the point. Like, if they score, they take the lead, but they don't – by any way, they don't win the game on that play or the fact that play wasn't.
Look that one up.
Anyway, I think we're done, dude.
Good show.
Great show. Again, look down below for unedited versions of this video and all of our OutDrank the Coverage bad movies and a drink. Join our Patreon. It's new. Go to patreon.com/OutDrank the Coverage. Now, for the summer, we're basically putting most of those shows free. Yeah. Like allowing people, but once the season starts, we will have behind the wall shows. Now, don't worry, it's not going to be our weekly show or our happy hours. It'll probably be like a fantasy show where we talk fantasy numbers, maybe a college show. Hey, there we go. Might do a college show behind. We were just talking about that earlier.
You're right. It was the final score at 26-21 with under 5 minutes to go when that play happened.
Yeah. No, I mean, they take the lead there, but I don't necessarily know if they win. It's 28-26. Hey, we seem to have this history where if you give Aaron Rodgers like a couple minutes and only needing a field goal, you're screwed.
A couple of seconds, really.
Oh, crap. Did that not make it?
You just glossed over the 2016 game.
No. I mean, I had it in the
Cowboys out in front. Star begins the count. Takes the snap. He's got the quarterback.
I guess I didn't get it put in.
So anyway, 2016 Cowboys have the number 1 seed, 13-3. Rookie quarterback Dak Prescott, rookie running back Ezekiel Elliott. They host the Packers.
Here we go.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I don't know why this didn't get edited into the great plays, but we all know this one. I always have it in my mind that it's Jared Cook. I mean, that it's Rodgers that catches it, but it's Cook. Here, I'll go back since we just
Richard Rodgers.
Yeah, I always have it in my mind it's him because he caught one of the Hail Marys.
Yeah. So during the 2015 season, because I had Richard Rodgers as my tight end, it was Rodgers to Rodgers.
So I just want to say this.
And I have both players in my starting lineup.
By the way, what is it with Green Bay iconic quarterbacks who go to the Jets turn out to be dicks?
2 for 2.
I mean, 2 for 2. But I want to point this out. All talk about Aaron Rodgers, lack of Super Bowls, terrible in championship games, all that, which is valid. All his crazy conspiracy stuff, political, whatever you're not, he says some weird shit. But I want you to take the Cowboys out of this play and just enjoy the artistry of what is a great quarterback.
Okay.
Look at this.
Looking downfield, find somebody.
Flicks the wrist 42 yards like it's nothing. That's amazing, guys. He's annoying. He's full of himself. But
look, Jordan Love, you watched him last year. It looked like he watched everything and absorbed it like a sponge, what Aaron Rodgers was doing. And if you watch Jordan Love play quarterback, it's almost like a carbon copy of Aaron Rodgers.
It really is, except for he might be even more efficient with him. Now, we'll have to see if, as teams figure him out. I can't find it. I was going to play a certain thing. Like, keep talking.
Your YouTube channel, not a YouTube channel, but your YouTube search history is pretty
what
crazy.
I was trying to find it when
I think you need therapy, sir.
I think you send me all these links. I was trying to find.
Oh yeah,
I was trying
they'll have forward on there.
I was trying to find that on Ron Burgundy where Vince Vaughn goes, Ron Burgundy, I hate you. But damn do I respect you. That's what I was looking for. But anyway, that's going to do it for a look back at the Dallas Cowboys, number 4 rival, the Green Bay Packers. Again, find us on Patreon, OutDrank The Coverage. Find us on YouTube. If you didn't find us through YouTube, you found us through a link. Go to youtube.com at L4 Media Company. Now, we're going to post this one raw on YouTube, even if it gets blocked.
Okay.
The San Francisco one, we're going to post the same day, but we're going to put it on Patreon first and then bring it over to YouTube. And going forward, probably next year, maybe we start next month, all of these will go up on Patreon first because we get copyright blocked. Yeah. And when we get copyright blocked, it means we don't get paid. And as much as we love doing this for free, I mean, this is our living. And so we want to keep doing these. We enjoy doing these. We're getting great numbers on these, and we appreciate that. So please go over to our Patreon. You can join for free for right now, probably through the summer. All the shows will be free on Patreon, but starting in the regular season, we're going to do preseason watch parties. We'll put that behind Patreon wall. Anyway, hey, check out our next one. It'll be San Francisco, spoiling it right there. But first, we're going to go have lunch at CC's, get sauced, and come back and do it all again, as this has been OutDrank The Coverage, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions, right here on L4 ED.